Hello and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this month's Designer Playbook panel. My name is Andrea Lillo, and I'm the executive editor of Designers Today. And we're so happy you joined us this afternoon because we are going to dive into videography and photography and how to get better at both, which are so essential in business nowadays. And we have a fantastic panel joining us today who will be sharing their tips and experiences with videos and photos. So to start, I'm going to go around my screen and have my panelists give a brief introduction of who they are, and then we'll dive in. So Jill, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, great. My name is Jill Abelman, and I run Inside Style Home and Design. We are a residential design firm. We're currently specializing in the luxury market. We don't do anything commercial. I've always just really enjoyed working with the homeowner. And before I started this business, I had a pretty long model home experience with builders and so on. So I've kind of been on both sides of the aisle. And I have to say that residential is definitely where I love to be.
Awesome, wonderful. Thank you. So Linda, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for inviting me today. I'm Linda Holt, and my business is Linda Holt Creative, and I have two parts of my business. I'm an interior decorator, and I work with residential homeowners to help them decorate their home, but I also am a former professional photographer, and I teach smartphone photography specifically for interior designers.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Nick?
Hey, well, thank you so much for having me, Andrea. I'm a video producer and digital graphics specialist at Element Studio here in High Point. I've been working with them for about 5 years. You probably see me around market wondering, who the 12-year-old looking guy with a 30-pound camera rig is. And there at Elements, we execute full service video and photography, basically everything from initial concept to final product. And my specialty is lying in 3D design, animation, and digital graphics.
Oh, cool. Great. Well, thank you all for your time today and sharing your expertise. So I want to tell everyone watching, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A, and we will get to them during the panel. But Jill, I'm going to start with you. Since during COVID, you really took your business to another level with your use of videography, as well as really built your social media following with videos and photos. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about how you go about documenting your projects and what's your process?
Okay, great, thank you. So during COVID, we were really fortunate that we had a very large project, a 7,000 square foot home, and the owner was really, really open to our ideas. Like pretty much she said yes to everything we presented. So it was really a true representation of what we could do, and it was a dream come true. And honestly, it was like the project. We had a couple little smaller ones, but we really, really gave her just so much attention. And I started doing during that time, without even really being familiar with too much with Instagram yet, I started doing little videos and posting them on my story of our day to day, like stressing out over two skinny guys carrying a 600-pound refrigerator downstairs, or installing the fireplace. And so people found that interesting versus just the glossy pictures at the end, like kind of what we go through to get to that point. And the project was just turning out so pretty that I was like, oh my gosh, I really want to get a professional video done of this project. And we toyed with that before, but it is a big investment, and it's kind of a big bite. But she was open to it, so we invested in that, and we had a local company here do the videography for us and create this beautiful presentation of the home. And the thing that I really love about video is, a lot of times you can't really get the whole space. You can take this picture, this angle, and this picture, this angle, but you miss all those things, and you miss all those really pretty small details of things you put on the tables and how the picture is framed and all those little things that make it unique and make it, a truly designed kind of project and really special. So we also use drones, and they kind of came in the back window. So you really did get a sense of the expanse of the space and how it all laid out. And then we immediately posted that on our website, of course, when it was finished. And before that project, we had some large projects, but not as many as we do now. It definitely affected the clients that were looking at us were like, oh, okay, you can do that. Because a lot of times you might have a project and you, again, if you can't really convey that in such an expansive way, and you've just got these little snippets, but when they can actually walk through the house with you, that's the best thing ever. And then the other thing, once that happened, of course, I was a big Instagram story enthusiast, still am. I still post almost every day on that for our, wherever we're doing, even if it's a sales rep here or whatnot. But for a while when I was doing it, I was like, why am I doing this? Is anybody even paying attention? Am I just like feeding my own ego? Oh, look what we're doing. Look what we're doing. It just felt really weird to me because I'm not usually a very look at me kind of person. But it all changed when we had another great prospective client come in, and I was explaining our process, and he said, wait, you don't even have to tell me all that. I've been stalking you on Instagram for months and I'm super comfortable with you. So he really felt like he knew us because of watching the stories. And I was like, wow, okay, that's my new everything right there. And of course, then he's also going to let us video his project. So now I'm just all on board with that. And in addition to that, we also professionally photograph those things too, because both have value. Both have value. And our website has nothing but our professionally photographed pictures and homes on it. And then if we have house or somewhere like that, we might put the ones that aren't quite that I took with, that I took, or that aren't quite as snazzy as, the ones that our professional photographer takes.
Wonderful. That's great. I was curious. So do you bring in other, like, would you outsource for other projects too? Or, I mean, not in terms of like shooting it professionally, but just the videos, do you do a lot of like outside, you bring a lot of outside people to do that? Or do you do it by yourself?
One company in particular. I've been working with one company in particular that I really enjoy. He's done the first professional one, and now I'm on the second professional one. And then we also did one kind of in between that was kind of a hybrid. We had a client that was still in presentation mode, and we didn't want to go to the expense of doing a whole video of our presentation process. We had done really nice 3D renderings, and we put them to music, and we kind of did a presentation that way. And that was also, kind of a shortcut to giving the whole, view of the house, and also much shorter, it was like a 1.5 minutes or something like that. It was like 10 good renderings in a short time period. And that was pretty effective as well.
And do you have to get you get your clients okay and doing the videos and everything, right? Do you put that in your contract or anything?
Absolutely. Yes. I talk about it right from the beginning because, the thing that gets you your work is the work that you have on your plate and on your website. So you're constantly looking to freshen that material. I don't want to just count on something. I'm like, even things that we did 5 years ago, I don't love as much as the things we're doing now. So I want to stay relevant. And I always like photography is a thing. So I talk about that in our almost every appointment until they sign up. And then it is in our agreement, that client agrees to. And if they do say, I did have one that said, okay, not until the project's over, a couple of times they've, said no. But I think one of them that was such a big project and they said, no, I think I turned it down just because that was really such a big part of what I needed from that project was that photography.
Yeah. And I love that behind the scenes look at what you do. It's not all pretty pictures, right? That's a really great.
Yeah, it's not. It's like, the contractor, like the other day, the wallpaper installer decided that we shouldn't hang wallpaper on that wall. And he talked to the client before he called me, and then she's in a flurry, and you're like, oh, really? Guy, could you just call me first? Like, she's not your boss. And, but just
Right.
making a problem before you even get up in the morning, you're just like,
Great,
so there's always, I say interior design is like 50% creativity and 49% creativity and 51% solving problems, because there's a problem every day and people don't have any idea about that. They think we just slide to the end. Yeah, everything just easy peasy and no problems, but that's not the case, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, thank you. So Nick, going to so videography for social media as well as brand content, are there any, is there any like techniques that you would do for one versus the other? Like, how do you delineate the two?
Well, social media is all about buzz, right? It's all about like relevancy, relatability. I mean, we live in the age of like endless scrolling on social media. So people need to put out content just to stay within the public sphere. And like Jill said, it's about like feeling like they know you, right? Whereas I feel like brand content is more about authentically representing you and your product in the most beautiful way, right? The way that, you know, represents your brand the best. So really they're, I mean, two different forms of video.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, and it seems like is social media, because I think if you're doing brand content, you're spending, is it more like more of a time, you have more time to work on that usually versus social, or does it depend?
Yeah, it really does depend, but a lot of time like brand content, if you're doing like beautiful product reveals or product videos, you want to spend a lot more time on the lighting and the settings and, you know, really capturing it the best way you possibly can. Whereas social media content, like I said, you're putting it out faster, you're putting out more of it, and you want it to be more about kind of keeping in touch with your base, like having that relationship with your clientele and your audience.
Okay, very nice, cool. So Linda, you do a lot of education around photography, and I love how you go like back to the basics with a lot of your work and your talk. Can you talk a little bit for someone who's an interior designer who wants to become better with the visual content? Are there tips to, you know, would you give to don't do this or do this? Anything you could share?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing I would say is the smartphone that you have in your hand, a lot of people think of it as just like a inferior digital camera and they don't take it seriously. I would say it is a, you know, $1,200 camera. I think of my phone as my camera, not as a phone. And I think designers need to maybe pay respect to it because it is a really powerful tool. And having been a professional photographer for 25 years before I went back to school for design, I'm always the first to advocate hire the professional for the portfolio shots when it really counts. But for every luxury interior designer like Jill with a firm that can, you know, maybe even for her, taking on that expense is a big decision. There are 100 or more designers who are just starting out, who work on their own. They don't have the budget to hire the professional. So I try to empower them to get the best photos possible using their smartphone. And it really is possible to get phenomenal photos with a smartphone. So.
Are there any things that you wouldn't do with a smart? I mean, are there any tips that people? Because I think sometimes people they're afraid of, you know, you're putting yourself out there, you're putting the visual content out there, you know, you're afraid of making a mistake. Is there anything that, you know, kind of go?
There's a couple things that I think when you use your smartphone, you have to do, especially if you're shooting an interior, because interiors are really complicated with a smartphone. You go outside, the phone is a genius. It exposes it perfectly. Everything is in focus. But when you're inside, especially doing your interior, whether it's behind the scene or you're trying to do a vignette, that's when you're going to run into issues. So it's really important to do a couple of things. Number one, you want to set the exposure and the focus manually. And to do that with a smartphone, you can either tap your finger on the back of the camera screen exactly where you want the exposure to be and the focus to be. Or if you just want to control the exposure alone, you can tap and hold until a yellow box comes up on the iPhone or a yellow circle comes up on the Android. And by sliding your finger up or down, you can either brighten it or darken it on an iPhone, or left to right, you can brighten it or darken it on an Android. So you should be controlling the exposure and the focus, absolutely. And the other thing is, I find that most designers don't really know how to hold their phone properly to get a photo. And it shouldn't be where most people hold it, which is up here by their face, because they're looking at the screen, which makes sense, but then they're tipping their camera down to photograph something. And it's really key to always hold your phone on the same level, the same plane as what you're photographing. And that's to prevent the perspective from being really off. And anyone that's ever taken a photo with an iPhone or an Android knows that it's really easy to get those wonky lines that are going out or bending in. But really, it's just a matter of holding your phone level, and you'll be able to fix the perspective that way. So those are just a couple of tips.
Right. Because I know also you in the past you talked about zooming with your feet.
Yeah.
Like too, 'cause I never thought about that before. Like, it's very easy when you have your phone, you just
Yeah.
zoom in, you're pitching in, pitching out. But
Yeah.
do that.
That is not, when you do that, people think that it's like a telephoto lens, like on a digital camera. That is not what you're doing. All you're doing is blowing up the pixels and degrading the image. So you never want to do that. And if you are really far from something and you don't have the option of, quote, zooming with your feet and getting closer, it's better to shoot it as it is and then crop it afterwards to what you want. You'll still get some minor degradation, but not nearly as much as pinching out with your fingers and just blowing up that photo.
And also, I know on your Instagram, I love how like every Friday you do like a Friday photo feedback. I love
Yeah.
that. So
Thanks.
yeah, it's fun. I think one dropped this morning, right? So
Yeah.
people can submit their photo, interior designers can submit their photos, and you will outline what they could have done better, which I think is great. It's a great tool. So
Yeah, it has become a fun, I sort of did it on a lark, but it's become sort of a fun little series, and I'm getting so many DMs. Oh, I'm loving this. I'm learning so much. So sometimes I think you learn more by looking at what not to do than by someone telling you what to do.
right, absolutely. So this is for anyone on the panel. Like, what are the obstacles to success, or what is it, like some of the missteps people take with regards to photo and videography? Any comments?
If you don't
I'd
mind me
love to-
Sure,
starting.
absolutely.
Oh, go
Thanks.
ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'd
go
say one of the biggest missteps I see is just not knowing your demographic and not properly representing your brand. I mean, it's really easy to get lost in the digital fray by like attempting to do what's trendy, what's cool from a technical perspective, or just reacting to the newspaper headlines of the day, rather than really providing an authentic glimpse into your brand and into your story. So, sometimes when you are putting out content just to put out content, you can lose yourself and lose your identity in that. And that goes hand in hand with technical things too. It's like, a big mistake too is poor lighting. But what I like to focus on is wrong lighting, because you don't want to showcase Memphis inspired design or live edge craftsmanship the same way you would like show the man cave recliner of all man cave recliners. So whether it's soft lighting or dramatic lighting, you want to pick the right one for your brand. You want to represent your brand the right way. And I feel like so many people see cool things out there that they want to try, but it doesn't necessarily, fit in line with their story and their style.
That's interesting. I cover lighting a lot, and so when you go to these lighting showrooms, and every fixture is on, and it's so hard to take pictures. It's like
It is
really
impossible.
tough. So it's but yes, that's those are great tips to consider. So Jill, you had something to say?
Well, I was just going to say, I think that one of the reasons we might have a slight edge in our market is that so few designers actually invest or learn how to take professional photographs. And instead, they just post a room that might very well be beautiful, but the lighting, like you said, is too dark or the angle is wrong. And they're just like, maybe no one's ever given them critical feedback. But I just kind of cringe half the time I see even pictures on someone's website that were honestly doesn't even look like they own an iPhone, because I agree with Linda that is such a valuable tool. I am not saying that I never use my iPhone. In fact, on a lot of projects where, let's say I'm only doing 2 or 3 rooms and I don't want to invest, I've gotten beautiful pictures with my iPhone and I've posted those and used those and, gotten great response. And, I'm not opposed to doing that at all. It's a great tool to have as well. And then the other thing I want to share with every designer that might be watching is that portrait mode is your friend. Portrait mode, I've sold so many things, like at High Point, I'll be there, I'll probably take 2,500 pictures and I'll take like 3 angles, side, round, flow, portrait mode, take a circle, do it all, and then just put them all per showroom. So as I'm thinking back on market, I'm like, oh, okay, it's Bernhardt, and I've got all my pictures there. And then when I go back and present to the client, I'm shopping just for them. I've showed them, oh my gosh, look what I found for you. And sometimes I'll do a little video if it is for someone in particular, hey, Steve, I've just found this piece. I think it's great for so-and-so. And it's just such a great tool. But the portrait mode just like makes everything kind of shine a little brighter. I don't know what the magic thing is. Maybe Linda can explain, but it makes everything a little shinier and a little prettier. And I know that when I go to High Point that I am going to, my goal is to make back all of my expenses with all the photographs I take and the things that I bring back to our clients.
I was curious, like, how did you learn to be a good photographer? How did you like,
Um,
read about it, or you just like trial and error?
I think it was probably just trial and error. And also I had a social media consultant way back when, which I think about it now, I laugh because I don't think it's that difficult to do it now, but at the time it seemed very overwhelming, like it did to all of us when, we first started. We were told, okay, every day you need to post on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. And she had like 6 places that we were supposed to post every day. So we hired someone to do it. And she told me, she's like, Jill, you're a terrible photographer. And I was like, what? Like I was so upset. I was like, well, what do I need to do? So I just started kind of paying more attention. And and I haven't been able to join Linda's group too much, but she does an incredible job. Of what I've have been a part of. Like, just find Linda, talk to her, and she'll lead the way, because I think mine was just kind of trial and error, and also being introduced to teachers like Linda.
Okay, very cool. What about, I don't know, Linda, do you have anything to say, or?
I was going to actually just say exactly what Nick and Jill said, but I do want to comment on the portrait mode, because that's something I talk about a lot in one of the classes I teach. The thing that is so great about portrait mode is it kind of turns your smartphone into a digital camera, because it can blur the background, and it's really valuable. I use portrait mode at High Point all day long because it will blur out the background, and so much of what you want to photograph, especially if you're doing getting a close-up or a little vignette or of an object to show your client, you don't want all the stuff that's in the background. And I think that is actually one of the mistakes that I see designers make, is they try to cram too much in the frame. And remember, people are looking at your images on their phone. So you have about a 3-inch square piece of real estate to grab their attention. And if you're showing like a whole showroom and there's all of the lights and there's so much going on, you can't really even see. I say to myself, what is this photographer trying to show me? What were they shooting? Sometimes it's hard to tell. So think to yourself, what do I want this photo to convey? Who am I showing this to? Make sure there is a clearly defined, focal point. Shoot that. And then if you put that in portrait mode, that will even drive it home more. So portrait mode is great.
Yeah, I never think about portrait mode, but now I'm going to have to look at it.
Yeah, yes. And if you have a newer phone, you can shoot it in portrait mode. And then later, when you're back at your hotel room, you can go into editing and you can control the amount of blur in the background. So you can make it really blurry or just a little blurry, and you can play around with it and see what looks best.
Oh, that's great. So since everything is being done on the phone, are there any like apps that you would recommend that to help either with editing video or photography?
I use 2 apps, and I use them 99% of the time. And the first one is Snapseed. That's free, and that is Google, works on all phones. And the other one I use all the time is Touch Retouch. And that app, I think, costs $2.99 to buy it. But it's so worth it. It does one thing and one thing only. It removes anything in your background that you don't want. So if you're shooting a behind the scenes shot of, say, a kitchen, and somebody leaves a Dunkin' Donuts mug or coffee cup that you didn't see on the island, you can just go in, swipe your finger over that cup, vanishes. Nice. And also for High Point, I use it a lot for High Point to take out the hang tags, because you get a nice photo of a piece of furniture and there's tags. Yep. Just go in, swipe your finger over each tag, hit apply, boom, they disappear. So Touch Retouch and Snapseed are the only 2 really you need on your phone. They're both intuitive. I am not technical, and if I could figure them out in like 10 minutes, anyone could figure them out. So those are the 2 I recommend.
What's Snapseed? What does that do?
Snapseed does everything else besides remove. I mean, it does have a thing for unwanted objects, but Touch Retouch is better. You can control contrast, brightness. You can put frames around it. You can fix the perspective. You can selectively brighten just one area of the photo. There's about 20 different tools that you can use. So pretty much anything you want to fix in your photo, Snapseed will do it.
Okay, wonderful. That's great. And it seems like video content is becoming really, really essential right now. Do you agree? And also, I guess, Jill, I'm going to start with you, since you do both video and photography. How do you balance the 2, or do you use one more than the other?
I think I just really do 50-50. Like if I'm doing my, stories per day, I'll do 2 videos, and then a still, 2 videos, still, something like that. Just whatever seems to be most appropriate for the subject matter. But I definitely don't do all pictures or all videos. It's always half and half.
Okay. And
Just
so you
make
say
it
you post every day. You post every day?
Pretty much. Every work day, pretty much.
That's a lot of time too, but that's
Well, I mean, that's why I like stories, because they go away in 24 hours. It's not a long-term commitment, but, and it really only takes a few minutes. I'm kind of guilty of not posting so much because that takes longer with the hashtags and all of that. And I'm not super patient with that. But I
Right.
also, of course, lately I'll share it to Facebook. So you only have to do it one time and it shares to your Facebook page. So that's nice. And I know there's other apps that, and Linda might be more familiar, that I used to be better at, where you can post in advance, you can schedule things in advance, and you can also have it populate more than 2 sites if you want by some of these apps. So that depends on who you want to reach. We can do that.
So your most of your social though is on Instagram, I imagine.
Mine's on Instagram and Facebook right now.
On Facebook.
Mhm.
Okay. And where do you
I
get the
find
most
more engagement on Instagram for some reason, but I think it's because of Facebook algorithms that they want you to sponsor and do ads and things a little bit more than Instagram seems a little bit more far reaching. And Linda, I would love your perspective on this. And I know reels are the hot thing. I've been doing some of those and I really don't understand why so many people see them. So I'd love to learn more about that.
Very cool. Go ahead.
I was just going to say Reels definitely, if you read all the Instagram announcements, they're favoring Reels, they're favoring video. The great thing about Reels though, is you can really, you don't have to do all video. You don't have to do all still. You can do a combination of video and still. So you can do, a reel with all video. You can do a reel with all photos that you upload, or you can do a reel with a mixture. So reels are growing in popularity. I know I did a poll, and most people said they hate reels, they hate them,
Really?
but everyone is doing them. People miss, especially interior designers, and I would say myself, I really used to relax just scrolling through looking at beautiful imagery. Now I scroll through and it like a loud video of music or somebody talking in, their face right here. And so I got so discouraged with that because I like to look at still photos. That's just my thing, beautiful imagery. So this summer, I took almost 2 months off of Instagram. I didn't post at all. Then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to have to get back in it. So I have started to do the reels again. And now I do the series on Friday that you mentioned. And now I'm actually starting to enjoy it. So I think it was just my own mindset, negative mindset. Like, I don't want to watch these stupid videos. I just want to look at pretty pictures, but I'm over it now. So I do both. I post in my feed maybe once or twice a week an image, and then I do a reel on Friday. So I try to mix it up like Jill does.
Oh, that's great.
I love that, adding the music to reels, because you can really create a mood. And I just
Oh,
find
yeah.
another layer of creativity. And when
Yeah.
people do them well, I think that's why they are so addicting, because you can really feel the intent of whoever created that reel. So it
And
is but it takes more time.
It doesn't, but if you can find a good template, like I'm totally into the templates now, because
Oh, yeah.
I was just spending so much time creating this from scratch. Now I just go through, find a template I like. Oh, I like that music. It's plug and play. Just put your photos and your videos in, and the little things twirls, and voila, you have a beautiful reel made.
Right. Oh, that's great. We do have a question, and it's for you, Linda. It's about Snapseed. Does Snapseed edit video where you can add still videos to the video for posting on your Instagram profile or in Instagram stories?
Snapseed is only for still images, but for video, I recommend InShot. That's the one I use. And that InShot will do all of that. But Snapseed will it's not for video. You have to upload a still photo.
Okay. And then Kathy wants to know, where do you find the templates?
If you are going in the back of your phone, or you go into Instagram to your profile, and if you click on the little plus sign up at the top and you scroll down and you click on create a reel, when you click on that, along the bottom, you will have an option that will say templates. Just click on templates and it'll pop up with, you can just scroll through and choose a template that you like.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I didn't know that either. So that if it makes my life easier, that's
yeah, templates are the way to go.
Another kind of shortcut that I like to use is that if you are scrolling through other people's reels and you hear music or words that you like, it'll often have a little button there where you can use that template, use the audio. So then
Oh,
you press use the audio and then you upload your photos. So instead of like searching, because I always can never find the right song either.
No, they
And
have
it takes a
terrible
lot of
music
time.
for just
So
the
I
general.
usually, so I usually just hunt, go find somebody else's I like. And then if I like one, I'll use it over and over again. I won't change it every single time.
And I do the same thing. If I'm just relaxing, I just will listen to the videos. And as soon as I like one, I just save it for later. And then when I do decide to make a reel, I'll just go through the ones that I've already saved that I like, because you don't have to use it right away. You can just save audio. Then you go into your saved audio and you pick whatever you want.
all right,
Exactly.
great. So someone asked, I think I know the answer to this, but so what was the other app that Linda, you mentioned about touching things up and erasing? I think that was Touch Retouch, right?
Touch Retouch. Yep.
Okay, very cool. So I was curious, what do you guys see coming on the horizon? I know 3D photography seems to be kind of on the rise. What kind of trends are you seeing in photography and videography?
So for the 3D side of things, I know one thing that's become a huge facet of our business is 3D scanning. And that could either be, entire showrooms for walkthroughs, or also like very high-res 3D scans of individual products. And, being in kind of the 3D world for a while, it's like I used to model all these things from scratch, or you'd get the CAD models from the manufacturers, and then you'd have to optimize them and texture them and make them look pretty. But now it's like the technology is there where we can just scan these things and we could pop them into silos. We can animate them, spin them around, put them into motion graphic videos. And really, I see it kind of taking over so much of the industry, but not as its own technology. I mean, it can be implemented into traditional photography, traditional videography, and then, kind of those future technologies too, like virtual reality, augmented reality, kind of the whole gamut. So I'm like super stoked on kind of where 3D is kind of taking us in this industry right now too.
Oh, interesting. And that's not an app though, like that's a separate type of equipment you need?
Yeah, so one of the technologies I've been working with extensively is called photogrammetry, which any photographers listening might be very familiar with this. It's kind of the process of constructing high-res 3D models via just a sequence of images. You take a full frame, DSLR camera, and you basically, do a dome of images around it and use computer software to kind of generate that, like that mesh, that 3D model that you would then, use in photography or videography or on its own, and, some other creative immersive way.
Oh, very cool. Okay, well, those are my questions, and we have no other questions that came in. So, thank you, panelists, for your time. This has been really great, and I know personally my photography game will get better just from what we've talked about today. These are really great tips and expertise. So I appreciate your time. Thank you to Jill, Nick, and Linda. And thank you, everyone who's watching. I hope you learned to have a lot of good takeaways for your photography and videography strategy. And, I guess thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month.